Doing what's more on the left, I see.
The camera's off on the right.
Good morning, everybody. We're here to talk about the open borders policy of the Biden administration and what sort of damage that has caused to Americans no matter where you live, not just along the border region. In particular, I want to emphasize the concerns I have, and I think average Americans would also have, about the 300,000 children who've been placed with sponsors by the Biden administration's HHS, Health and Human Services, or Office of Refugee Relocation. The New York Times did an investigative piece recently, a couple of them actually, documenting forced labor among some of those children who have been placed with sponsors. But one of the most shocking statistics that was revealed in those stories, that of the 300,000 children who've been placed with sponsors in the United States, not necessarily relatives, could be a parent, could be a distant relative, but could just be a foster home, that in 85,000 of those placements, the 30-day wellness call that is typically made by the administration went unanswered. And so not only does the Biden administration not know where 300,000 children currently reside, what's happening to them, whether they're going to school, whether they're getting health care, whether they're being recruited for gangs, whether they're being trafficked for sex, or just simply neglected or abused, the Biden administration doesn't know. And the truth is they don't care. Because if they did know, they would do something about it. But they refuse to do so, even though, as the New York Times documented, high-level officials like Marty Walsh, the former Secretary of Labor, Susan Rice, former domestic policy advisor, among others, were told about what was going on and yet refused to do anything about it. You know, I've wondered as a border state senator, what's it going to take to get the attention of the Biden administration to finally do something about the Biden border crisis? Well, obviously 300,000 children who are in the United States that they don't know what they are or what's happening to them, what their circumstances are. That's not enough to move them. How about 108,000 dead Americans? Dead because they consumed some of the drugs that are smuggled across the southwestern border, including 71,000 from fentanyl. I've gone to high schools, I'm sure my colleagues have too, and grieved with the parents and school officials over kids who thought they were taking a Xanax or a Percocet, but in fact were taking a counterfeit pill laced with fentanyl, enough to kill them. I still wear a wrist bracelet from one I got at Carrollton Farmers Branch, where a father gave me a bracelet that commemorates his daughter who lost her own life as a result of a fentanyl poisoning, and it says, "One pill can kill." Trying to raise public awareness to this scourge. So if 300,000 lost children won't get the Biden administration attention, how about 108,000 dead Americans? Well, apparently that's not even enough to move them. Finally, let me just say, even the Attorney General of the United States acknowledged that the mass migration of individuals across the border was really part of a larger game plan. First of all, it makes these transnational criminal organizations, the cartels, rich. But secondly, by diverting Border Patrol, taking them off the front lines so they can attend to administrative duties like feeding these unaccompanied children, changing diapers and the like, that's created a huge opportunity for the drugs to come across, which again contributed to the death of 108,000 Americans last year. So we're here today to ask, what will it take? What will it take to finally get the Biden administration to wake up to their failed open border policies? And how many more people need to die? How many more children need to be lost before the Biden administration finally agrees to work with us on a bipartisan basis to address this problem? Senator Lankford.
Senator Corden, thanks for your leadership on this, that you have been at this and at this and at this, to be able to focus in on the country on what we're going to do on the border crisis. It's interesting that the numbers can run up to 10,000 a day, and then they drop back to 3,000 to 5,000 a day, and the Biden administration says, look, the numbers are way down, and it seems that the national media just looks away. They just take the cue from the Biden administration, don't pay attention to this anymore. Everything's just fine. Don't stare at the 3,000 to 5,000 people still coming across the border, still being released, into the unaccompanied minors that are still being released out in the countries that the Biden administration has no idea where they are. We have multitudes of challenges here. The population crossing the border right now is a different population than what we saw even last year. Fewer people that are Spanish speakers. The cartels are advertising worldwide and are drawing more and more people in from Pakistan, from Russia, from China, from West Africa, from areas outside of Central America. We're seeing folks that are coming in. The vast numbers of those are men in their 20s and 30s. We saw this at 9/11, where the country was not focused in on individuals that were illegally present in the country, and a small handful of people that were not legally present in the country caused a major national security loss for us, and 3,000 Americans die. Listen, this is a national security issue because we have more and more people that are crossing the border that are not from our region, that are literally come from all over the world, facilitated by the cartels. We have more and more children that are in our country that this administration has no idea where they are, and we have more and more operations from the cartels where they're pushing across asylum seekers at one point, then 3 miles down the river, pushing people in with backpacks and camo to be able to bring in who knows what. This is an ongoing issue, and for whatever reason, the media has chosen to look away and just pretend this problem is solved because the Biden administration has released the numbers are down, when the numbers are 3 times higher than what they were during the Obama administration, and we still have a record low number of deportations while we have a record high number of people illegally crossing the border. All we're trying to do is to be able to get the administration to do their job. They have a basic requirement to be able to enforce the law. Our simple statement is follow the law, enforce the law, follow through on that. We're glad to be able to partner with them on ways to be able to fix the asylum process. There's lots of things that have got to legislatively be done. But right now they have the obligation to follow the law and enforce the law.
I just want to thank my colleagues for highlighting a very, very dark issue. And at the end of the day, Biden is simply derelict in his duty. We've seen over 300,000 unaccompanied minors. They flooded the border. 85,000 of those children have been reported missing. I just want to reiterate that number. 85,000 of those children are reported missing. We hear reports of child labor, cruel working conditions, abuse, and untold other horrors. And here's from Joe Biden back in 2018, soon to be a candidate at that point. He said, a policy that separates young children from their parents, it isn't a deterrent, it's unconscionable. He also said, a policy that traumatizes children isn't a bargaining chip, it's abhorrent. Remember, these are the words of Joe Biden. It's simply put that his open border policy is exactly what he said that it shouldn't be. It's unconscionable and it's abhorrent. Friends, strong nations shouldn't have weak borders. Strong nations don't allow tens of thousands of children to be lost and to be abused. So for the sake of these children, and for the sake of our national credibility, we need this administration to change course.
So let's go through the numbers since the Biden administration took office. In the year prior, in 2020, less than 500,000 people came across the border illegally. Less than 500,000. In the first year of the Biden administration, 2021, 1.7 million. 1.7 million. In 2022, 2.4 million. 2.4 million people that year alone. This year, almost up to 1.8 million in about 9 months. So on track to do another 2.4 million. That's about 6.5 million people that have come across the border illegally so far during the Biden administration. And that just counts the ones that we know of, the gotaways and so forth. Add those in as well. And it's not just the southern border now. You're seeing the same thing on the northern border as well. I'm from a state on the northern border. The first year, less than 30,000 came across. First year of the Biden administration. Now it's